All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about a crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, a critical artery for global trade that is on the very edge of being completely shut down. We're going to break down exactly what's happening and how this flashpoint could ripple out and affect, well, pretty much everything. So, what does happen when a waterway that carries about a fifth of the entire world's oil just stops? The shockwaves are immediate. You see it in global energy markets, you see it in scrambled supply chains, and you can even see it in the prices you pay for things every day. This is the story of what that shutdown looks like in real time. Okay, first, let's get our bearings. We're zeroing in on the Strait of Hormuz. You have to understand this isn't just any narrow passage of water. It is one of the most vital choke points on the entire planet, and right now, it's ground zero for a massive international standoff. Now, tensions in the region were already incredibly high. There was already a U.S. naval blockade in place that had basically frozen trade. But things were being held together by a very, very fragile ceasefire. And then, that ceasefire was shattered. Yeah, that fragile piece, it didn't hold. A single event just ripped right through that ceasefire, and it's pushed the entire region right to the brink of a much wider conflict.
So over the weekend, everything changed. Reports started pouring in about gunfire erupting inside the strait. This wasn't just a minor incident, it was a clear, dangerous, and direct violation of the ceasefire agreement.
And let's get into the specifics of what was reported. The accusation is that Iranian forces opened fire on international ships. And here's the crucial part. The targets weren't random. They included a French ship and a British freighter. In an instant, this went from being a regional issue to a full-blown international crisis. And the reaction from the White House? It was immediate and it was severe. President Trump didn't mince words at all. He just came out and called it a total violation. That one quote really set the tone for everything that was about to happen next. Because what came next wasn't more diplomacy. It was an ultimatum. The language got very blunt very fast. The choice presented to Tehran was incredibly stark. Either you make a deal or you face destruction. This was the first part of that message. President Trump basically laid out two distinct paths forward. He made it clear that a resolution was coming, one way or another. But, that immediately raised the question, what exactly does the hard way mean? And here's the answer. This was the hard way. The threat couldn't have been more direct or unambiguous. A potential military strike targeting Iran's most essential infrastructure. So you see how the stakes were just raised exponentially. We went from a naval standoff to the very real possibility of a devastating large-scale conflict. Now let's step back from the military threats for a second because this crisis is already having a massive economic impact. We are literally watching global supply chains get redrawn in real time, and that's creating some very clear winners and losers. For anyone watching the markets, this is absolutely a story you need to follow. Let's start with the economic pressure on Iran. According to President Trump, the blockade and the shutdown of the strait are costing Iran a truly staggering amount of money, $500 million every single day. That is an almost unbelievable amount of economic pain. But here's the other side of that economic coin. While Iran is facing these incredible losses, all of that trade that's been halted, well, it has to go somewhere else. And according to these same reports, this disruption is causing a huge and very rapid realignment of global trade routes, with the U.S. apparently seeing a benefit. So where's all that shipping traffic going? International cargo is reportedly being rerouted to American ports, specifically calling out locations in Texas, Louisiana, and even Alaska. Now, this points to a potential upside for U.S. domestic port infrastructure and logistics companies, a really key trend for any investor to keep an eye on as this whole thing unfolds. But despite all the aggressive talk and the military posturing, there is still one possible off-ramp. Diplomacy isn't completely dead yet, and all eyes are now turning towards Islamabad, Pakistan. And this is really the central contradiction of this entire crisis. It's like one hand is holding a sword while the other is still reaching out to talk. It's been confirmed that high-stakes negotiations are set to get back underway in Islamabad. And listen, the clock is ticking on this. The timeline is incredibly tight. The U.S. envoy is set to arrive on Monday, the talks officially kick off Tuesday, and they might only stretch into Wednesday. This is not some long, drawn-out process. This is an absolute race against time. And that's why these talks are so incredibly important. They're being seen by many as the absolute last chance to find a peaceful way out of this, to pull everyone back from the brink of a major military conflict before that ceasefire officially expires for good. So that's where we are right now. The entire situation is balanced on a knife's edge. Will this last-ditch effort at diplomacy in Islamabad actually lead to a breakthrough? Or is the world about to find out what happens when this global trade artery is shut down by force? The answer is going to define the future of the Strait, and maybe global stability itself.